What up, friends? Blooms here. So South Park just dropped a new episode and it's all about AI. Yeah, the boys discover a chatbot that will literally write their essays.
Excuse me, who the hell are you? Why are you pretending to be me? Wait a minute. You're not even real. You're an AI-generated imposter. But you look so real. This is getting real scary, guys. I mean, how do I know that I'm not AI too? And if we're both AI... The new episode of South Park just came out, and it was certainly something. It was all over the place. It really felt like there were like 8 different plot lines playing out simultaneously, which is kind of what I expected. As I mentioned previously, they've set up so many unfinished stories this season that they're definitely going to need the last couple episodes to wrap them all up. But what really surprised me about this episode is that, low-key, this might have been the best episode of the season for me. And when I say the season, I'm referring to season 27 and 28 because they're technically 2 different seasons, but it's really just one. Now, I don't think this was the most cohesive episode or even the funniest episode, and I do have my issues with it, but this episode's greatest strength was its lack of political commentary. Instead, this episode focused more on social commentary, targeting the malicious use of AI-generated videos, the ethics of the plagiaristic nature of generative AI, and they even found time to make fun of one of their favorite targets, the police. Now, of course, Trump and JD Vance still had their own side plot, but at this point, they're just characters in this narrative that they've been building for 7 episodes. And because of that, they can include them as characters in this plot without feeling like they need to comment on their real-life counterparts, which gave them the ability to do whatever they wanted with these characters, and I will be the first to tell you, they took full advantage of that. Now, obviously, they did still throw in a little bit of political commentary at the end, but despite that, this episode was incredibly refreshing. Obviously, I haven't hated the Trump stuff as much as a lot of people, but I can definitely admit that tuning in for every episode just to be reminded of the fact that the president recently signed the raise rent for single mothers bill has gotten pretty exhausting, and for the most part, they do a good job avoiding that in this episode. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Today's video is sponsored by Raycon. I've recently become a big fan of Raycon's bone conduction headphones. They're great for staying alert on a jog or just kicking back. And for Black Friday and Cyber Monday, you can save up to 30% on all Raycon audio products. Raycon's bone conduction headphones use off-ear audio, sending sound through vibrations in your bones. Your ears stay open to the world around you while you still get crystal clear music, podcasts, or calls. They're perfect for multitasking. I love to wear them when I go for a walk to make sure I'm still aware of all my surroundings. They can get up to 13 hours of battery life, they're waterproof and dustproof, and they have a no-bud fit that doesn't slip. They give you a truly premium performance without the premium price tag. And with Black Friday right around the corner, Raycon audio products are up to 30% off site-wide. From everyday essentials to the latest releases, it's the perfect time to upgrade your sound or get ahead on gifting. These deals aren't going to last long, so make sure to get them now before they're gone. Click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/bloomsbc to save on Raycon audio products site-wide. I love Raycon personally, and if you're looking for some new headphones, I highly recommend you check them out. Thank you to Raycon for sponsoring this video. The episode opens with Santa Claus pissing in Red's face. Yeah, they really come out swinging with this one. Also, I haven't seen anyone say this, but I think this might be like a subtle reference to Postal 2, because she's trying to get people to sign a petition and she gets pissed on. Could just be a coincidence, but I figured I'd mention that. It turns out it's actually just an AI video that Butters made with Sora 2. He made it to get revenge on Red for pretending to like him so that he'd buy her a Labubu back in episode 4 of the season. What's interesting is that they seem to have really leaned into the fact that Butters is kind of an incel nowadays, and I'm conflicted about that.
That bitch deserves it!
It started back in season 20 when his girlfriend broke up with him and he led an anti-woman movement. And I gotta be honest, I don't really enjoy the way his character has evolved. I do like the fact that Butters is a lot more willing to stand up for himself nowadays, but the incel angle just doesn't feel right for him. The whole reason Butters has always been so beloved by fans is that he's the only kid that still felt like a kid. He had a childlike innocence and naive positivity that all the other kids lost pretty quickly. Even when he was doing something morally questionable, like when he was pimping on the playground, it was always through the lens of a kid that didn't really know what he was doing. But nowadays he feels a lot more jaded. He curses all the time and he just feels more hateful, and that innocence seems to be slowly slipping away. I mean, realistically, it's kind of a natural progression for his character, but I really just miss the old Butters. It's especially weird because they haven't been super consistent about it either. Just a few episodes ago, he was back to his innocent self talking about how nice it is to have a lady friend. And don't get me wrong, he's definitely still entertaining and I like him in this episode. It's just hard for me to enjoy his character as much as I previously did. But anyways, PC Principal holds an assembly trying to get the students to be a little more patriotic, but his video is quickly replaced with a video of Butters having sex with Totoro. Turns out Red has been plotting, and she decided to fight fire with fire. I do think it's pretty cool that they seem to be building Red's character a lot this season. I mean, she's been in the show since literally the first episode. She's always just been there, occasionally saying a few lines, but mostly being a background character. And I like the fact that they're willing to try to build up these old characters instead of just adding new ones, which is something they've been doing a lot more frequently. So Leanne goes to the police about the fact that Cartman was pretty much kidnapped by Peter Thiel, who only told her that they were going to DC. But she's interrupted when Detective Harris hears some much more important news.
There's a young boy there, sir. Appears he's been molested by Totoro. Holy shit!
He ends up questioning Butters at the school, but Butters refuses to talk because he knows that he's the one who started all of this. He's also shown another video of a student who seems to have fallen victim to Popeye the Sailor Man. He thinks all of this is somehow connected. Cartman's kidnapping, these children being abused, he just doesn't know how. He tries to question Kenny on what Popeye did to him, but he won't talk either. His interrogation is interrupted by some pissed off Studio Ghibli employees who have a serious problem with what Butters is doing.
This is a shishu and the shisto! Shishu and the shisto!
Now, if you don't know, Totoro is a Studio Ghibli IP, and the reason they use Studio Ghibli here specifically is because for whatever reason, people love to use their art style when generating AI images. Pretty much every time you see one of those AI-generated cartoon pictures, it's trying to emulate Studio Ghibli. They give out a cease and desist, but Detective Harris still has absolutely no clue what's going on.
Alright, I can't understand a word anyone here is saying.
Meanwhile, Leanne watches obviously AI-generated videos where Cartman talks about how much fun he's having on his trip. Honestly, this was probably my favorite joke from the episode, with AI Cartman just spouting off his old catchphrases. I thought it was hilarious.
Just want to let everyone know I'm safe and sound. No, kitty, that's my pet pet. I love cheesy poofs and respect my authority back.
So we find out that Peter Thiel is the one creating these AI videos to avoid suspicion, and Cartman isn't happy about it. Of course, he's not upset about the morality of using someone like this. He's just pissed he's not getting paid.
I haven't even talked about cheesy poofs in like 5 years. If you want to use me, then you gotta pay a motherfucker.
So while all of that is going on, the president is busy menacingly staring down JD Vance, who is looking as adorable as ever. Now, I didn't actually mention it in my previous video, but last episode, Trump found out that JD Vance was plotting behind his back to get rid of Satan's baby. Trump is pretty upset that JD tried to deceive him, despite the fact that he also wants to get rid of the baby. But JD makes sure to reassure him that they have the same end goal, and he explains to him that he has someone that can help take care of all of this. We then cut to both of them chilling in a hot tub, where JD explains to him that he cares about him more than anyone else.
Nobody feels for you the way that I do. Nobody both.
This scene immediately reminded me of the season 3 episode, appropriately titled Two Guys Naked in a Hot Tub, where Gerald and Randy share an intimate moment in the hot tub. We then get a scene where Droopy the dog craps into Kyle's mouth, which of course is another AI video created by the girls. And Kyle was the one initially warning Butters not to create the AI videos, but now that he's being targeted by them, he immediately hops on the bandwagon. The detectives are still trying to put the pieces together in this grand conspiracy of cartoon characters assaulting children, and I love their little red thread board with all of the cartoon characters and their connections. Now, I've seen a lot of people talk about the cartoon characters they pick for this because in reality the choices don't really make much sense. Like, what kid nowadays would be making AI videos of Betty Boop, Pink Panther, or Yogi Bear? But this didn't really bother me because Matt and Trey have always loved these old school cartoons and reference them all the time. Plus, I think they know that if they just used memes that kids actually like, the vast majority of their audience would be incredibly confused. Like, imagine if Butters assaulted Tung 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 Sahur and Kyle got crapped on by John Pork. It would be borderline incomprehensible to anyone over the age of 16. But since none of the kids are willing to talk, the cops decide that they need to go undercover to gain their trust. Now, the cops in this episode are pretty hilarious. I love the fact that they just can't comprehend the idea that these videos might be fake, and instead choose to believe that these kids are actually getting assaulted by fictional characters. It felt especially real since it seems like anyone over the age of 40 has absolutely zero ability to tell when a video is AI. Like, literally the day after this episode came out, one of my coworkers showed me a TikTok of this lion putting its cub into a safari truck to protect it from hyenas, and I spent the next 15 minutes trying to explain to him that this is AI and how to recognize these videos. And of course, anyone that has parents that use Facebook know exactly what that's like. I just find it fascinating how growing up on the internet, I built this inherent distrust of anything that seems unrealistic, and despite how good these AI videos are getting, it's still pretty easy to recognize them for me. But for the older folks who haven't watched the evolution of this stuff, they just blindly believe whatever's put in front of them without even questioning it, even when it's things that they know are impossible. They just cannot cannot comprehend the idea that someone could be trying to deceive them, and honestly, it's kind of sad. And I think the cops in this episode are the perfect way to make fun of these people, having them believe that literal fictional characters are part of a child abuse ring simply because these videos are too real to question. It being the police specifically also made a lot of sense to me because South Park has a very long history of using them as a representation of incompetence for obvious reasons. So meanwhile, back at the White House, JD Vance gives Peter Thiel a call and lets him know that Trump is officially in on their plan. He told him everything and he's fully supportive of it. We then get a scene of Trump and JD in bed and things escalate very quickly. I wish I could show this scene because it is so funny, but it's pretty graphic, so you'll have to go watch it yourself. But this scene kind of represents what I was saying earlier when I said that the Trump and JD plot is so absurd that it actually works much better than when they're trying to do political commentary. Like, making Trump and JD Vance have a graphic, steamy movie sex scene is way funnier than anything they could say about these two politically. It reminds me a lot of the first episode of the season where Trump was just this silly caricature with a tiny penis. It's intentionally juvenile and ridiculous, and that's what made it funny in the first place. And I think they kind of lost sight of that over the course of this season. I think a huge part of the reason people loved that episode so much was because they weren't trying to make any overt statements about his politics like everyone else who tries to make fun of Trump. Instead, they were just clowning on him because of how ridiculous he is. And in my opinion, that's really the only effective way to make fun of Trump because everything else about him is so ridiculous that it's beyond parody. This scene also immediately gave me Team America World Police vibes, which, if you don't know, was a movie Matt and Trey made with puppets back in 2004. They have a sex scene in that movie that is incredibly graphic and over the top to the point where it's comedic, especially since it's done by two puppets, and it definitely felt like Matt and Trey channeled that energy for this one. Especially since this scene was also performed by two puppets, am I right? Okay. We then cut back to Detective Harris and Mitch, who are undercover as Rocky and Bullwinkle, and they chat about how much things have been changing. They lament about what their job used to be like and how strange everything is now, with criminals whose appearances can just change at will and how tough it's making their job.
Maybe the job doesn't need you anymore.
They end up trying to pick up Red to get her to talk, and then we cut to Kyle, Butters, and Kenny defending themselves in a courtroom due to their AI creation. The person pressing the charges isn't Red, though. It's someone whose likeness was used without their permission.
That's right. They made me do things I would normally never do.
Now, what's weird about this scene in particular is that it seems to be real. And what I mean by that is that the episode has had several scenes where you don't realize it's a Sora 2 video until it cuts to the boys reacting to the video, but this scene never does that. So it seems like the implication is that Bluey is really testifying against them in court. And that alone opens up a whole bunch of questions about the rest of the episode, like why is she real? Are the other fictional characters they used also real? And if that's the case, then maybe the police weren't as incompetent as we thought. I mean, if they're real, then it makes way more sense that the cops thought they might actually be responsible for these crimes. The whole thing doesn't really make any sense, but if there's one thing we know about Matt and Trey, it's that they're willing to add some plot holes for the sake of comedy.
I didn't make 1 cent.
Now, one thing I haven't really seen anyone point out about this episode is that it's pretty meta. One of the main things they're commenting on is how AI just lets you use anyone's likeness or IP without consent or compensation for the owner. And the reason that's meta is because that's exactly what the show is doing in this episode and what they've done for almost 30 years. I mean, not only did they animate all of the Sora 2 videos that the boys made with these characters, they also just made Donald Trump and JD Vance have graphic sex. So to me, this whole thing kind of feels like them poking fun at themselves, pointing out the irony that them of all people are making this statement, but I also don't think that they're equating what they do with what people are doing with AI. South Park can do what they do because it's parody. They're imitating things and exaggerating them for comedic effect. But these generative AI tools are trained on the actual copyrighted material. Sora 2 has seen every episode of South Park. So when you ask Sora 2 to make a South Park character, it's just using that copyrighted material to recreate the character. It's not imitating, it's just taking. And that's of course besides the fact that all of the copyrighted material these AIs were trained on were used without consent from the copyright holders. So yeah, I just figured I'd mention that because I haven't seen anyone else say it, but I do think that that was an intentional like meta commentary they were making. So Butters finally admits to using Sora 2 for the videos after seeing Cartman's videos, and upon hearing this, the police realize what exactly this means.
You're saying that the Eric Cartman videos are all being created by someone to distort the truth? That's gotta be Totoro! Trace the IP address and let's get the son of a bitch!
So they raid Peter Thiel's hotel room, still fully expecting to find Totoro there, and despite the fact that he is clearly not Totoro, they still don't really understand.
But no magical cat bus is gonna whisk you away from justice this time!
Cartman is finally reunited with his mother, where he's not too happy about the fact that she couldn't tell that those videos were fake.
When is the last time I even ate a pot pie, you dumb bitch!
But as the police sweep the hotel room, they end up finding security footage from all of Peter Thiel's surveillance cameras, and as it turns out, he has more than a few in the White House, including in the Lincoln bedroom. So that's when we get a Fox News special alert, and I haven't mentioned it in any of my other videos, but it's been a running gag this whole season that every time there's one of these, the way Trey says Fox News special alert has gotten more and more like ridiculous every time, but this time he's just really depressed when he said it, and I thought it was really funny.
This is a Fox News special alert.
But everyone at Fox is incredibly upset about this leaked footage of Trump and Vance. Trump ends up calling into the show to defend himself, and his defense is exactly what I think all of us expected.
That's fake! It's all Sora too!
Of course, Fox News immediately takes his word, and their spirits are completely restored. What's funny is that this bit actually became more relevant immediately after this episode was aired, considering the recently released Epstein emails that would implicate Trump as knowing about the things Epstein was doing, and Trump immediately calling them a Democrat hoax. This, of course, comes after he campaigned on releasing the files, then said he wasn't in the files, then said there are no files, then got mad everyone was still asking about the files, then said there are files but they're a Democrat hoax, then said these emails are a Democrat hoax, then said actually the files are real and they're full of Democrats, but my name being in there is a hoax, and now he's promising to investigate the files to get the Democrats in them, the files which both do not exist and are a Democrat hoax, which coincidentally would mean that these files can't be released since they're part of an active investigation. And then he even went as far as to turn his back on his day ones by declaring the fact that he doesn't support Marjorie Taylor Greene anymore because she's wacky and all she does is complain. The complaining in question, of course, is her continued pushing for the release of the Epstein files. These are totally normal behaviors for someone who is completely innocent. But anyways, the episode ends with Trump and Vance discussing how everything is in place to begin their plan, and they share a passionate kiss as the credits roll. So that was the episode, and like I said, this might be my favorite of the season. It's still hard to beat the first episode because of how insane it is with the context of everything going on at Paramount and all that, but in terms of entertainment directly from the episode, this has probably been my favorite. I love their willingness to get really wacky with this one, and the fact that they could do the Trump and JD parodies without feeling the need to do political commentary specifically. I mean, really the only political commentary in the whole episode was the bit at the end with Fox just accepting Trump's word of the videos being a hoax. But this episode has me fully bought in on the Trump and JD plot now. Assuming they continue in this manner, I'm really excited to see where they go with it. And of course, I enjoyed the AI stuff as well. Detective Harris is one of my favorite recurring characters in the show, and whenever they make fun of cops, they tend to do a pretty good job. But the episode definitely did have some issues. There are some weird plot holes, and the story was a little bit disjointed, especially with the courthouse scene, which kind of came out of nowhere, and Butters, who essentially has a I learned something today moment at the end, felt out of place. Like, they never really showed any reason for Butters to have this sudden change of heart. And I don't really like how they wrapped up the Peter Thiel plot either. It seems like they wrote themselves into an awkward spot with that plot and didn't really know what to do with it, so they just decided to chalk it up altogether, and it was a very unsatisfying way to end it. But apparently the police still have Peter Thiel, so who knows what they plan on doing with him in the next 2 episodes. And speaking of the next 2 episodes, it's almost certainly going to be a 2-parter to wrap up the season. At this point, I have no clue where this story is going to go, but I am excited to see it. Pretty much the only theory I have has to do with the fact that the Antichrist is supposedly coming, the only way to stop it is an abortion, and we are nearing Christmas. And upon hearing that, I imagine some of you may be realizing what I'm getting at. The fact that this is the exact same setup as one of my favorite episodes of the entire show, Woodland Critter Christmas. It's all been lining up just a little too perfectly, and it would be awesome if they brought back the Woodland Critters. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm excited to see where we go from here, and I will talk to you guys again soon.